Delegations from Colombia and Ecuador met in Quito to discuss bilateral relations. In the United States, immigrant advocates expressed concern over the Trump administration's plan to include a citizenship question in a pilot test of the 2030 census. In Pakistan, at least 31 people were killed and dozens more were wounded in a suicide bombing attack at a Shia Mosque in Islamabad. Hello and welcome to From the South, from the headquarters of teleSUR English in Havana, Cuba. My name is Pablo Micheliche. We begin with the news, so stay with us. Delegations from Colombia and Ecuador met in Quito to discuss bilateral relations in the areas of security, border control, energy and trade. Colombia and Ecuador held a high-level meeting to address the recent bilateral crisis and seek solutions in security and trade. It should be noted that the meeting, which was held behind closed doors, was in response to the escalation of tensions following Ecuador's imposition of tariffs on Colombian products. For its part, the Colombian delegation, led by its foreign and defense ministers, seeks to restore binational exchanges and normalize relations in the border area. Venezuela's acting President Delcy Rodriguez met Friday in Caracas with Spain's former Prime Minister José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero. The meeting was reportedly held to exchange views on the progress of the government's efforts in favor of national reconciliation and political dialogue. The program is part of the Bolivarian diplomacy of peace aimed at boosting fraternal relations, dialogue and solidarity with all political sectors in the country. The Spanish former Prime Minister also participated on Friday in a session of the Program for Democratic Coexistence and Peace launched by the acting president on January 23. The project was conceived in a spirit of patriotism and anti-colonialism aimed at strengthening stability, social harmony and political dialogue in the nation. Mexico announced the sending of a new shipment of solidarity aid to Cuba while working on the reopening of oil shipments to Havana. President Claudia Sheinbaum announced this Friday that a shipment of supplies will be sent to the largest of the Antilles in the coming days. The head of state assured that diplomatic efforts are underway to be able to resume oil shipments to Cuba without causing any impact on her country. Her statement comes amid growing tensions with the United States after Washington threatened to impose tariffs on countries that supply crude oil to the Antillean nation. Now in Colombia, a coal mine in the department of Cundinamarca exploded due to a methane gas leak inside the mine, leaving 7 miners buried and many injured. After approximately 24 hours of rescue work led by the National Mining Agency, the Civil Defense Corps, the Technical Investigation Corps and the National Police, 4 bodies were rescued and the search continued for 3 bodies located at least 170 meters deep. Captain Alvaro Farfan, the fire department's departmental delegate, said that high levels of methane were detected in the mine and that 2 backhooks were used to improve ventilation. The National Mining Agency stated that they are investigating the causes of the incident and will take measures to prevent similar incidents in the future. We continue in Colombia. Rejection of U.S. foreign policy was felt in the country's capital, where social movements denounced actions that threaten regional peace. Social and human rights organizations protested in front of the U.S. Embassy in Bogotá. The protesters rejected the interferential and imperialist attack by the Donald Trump administration, which is evident in its participation in the Palestinian genocide through the massive sending of weapons, military funding and political support to the Israeli Zionist regime. In addition, the protests condemned all forms of foreign intervention that violate the sovereignty of peoples, highlighting the aggressive policy of the U.S. administration as a threat to peace and the self-determination of nations. In Panama, exhumations have begun to identify the victims of the 1989 U.S. invasion and heal open wounds. In a historic event for memory and justice, Panama's Truth Commission began exhuming the bodies of victims of the last U.S. military intervention in Panama, which took place in December 1989. The invasion, called Operation Just Cause by the George Bush administration, left thousands of Panamanian civilians dead. This action seeks to clarify the crimes, identify the disappeared, and bring truth to the families who for more than 3 decades have demanded justice for one of the most brutal and least recognized military aggressions of U.S. imperialism in Latin America. And now we have a short break coming up, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news update and much more. We will be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. On Friday, the immigrants advocates expressed concern over the Trump administration's announcement that it will include a citizenship question in a pilot test of the 2030 census. The test will be conducted from April to September in approximately 155,000 households in Huntsville, Alabama, and Spartanburg, South Carolina. On Thursday, the Republican administration revealed its intentions to include the controversial question in the test, reviving the initiative to count the U.S. population based on immigration status. The measure reignites a debate that faced legal obstacles during Trump's first term. Courts blocked the conclusion of such a question in the 2020 census after multiple lawsuits were filed. Furthermore, on Friday, New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani signed an executive order aimed at strengthening protection for immigrants in the city. According to the order, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, cannot access private property without a warrant, including places like garages, schools, and hospitals. Major city agencies must train employees on how to interact with immigration authorities. The city administration has 2 weeks to appoint a privacy officer to each department, develop specific training programs, and certify compliance with protective measures, such as limiting data sharing with federal agencies, particularly ICE. A new Canadian consulate was opened in Nuuk, the capital of Greenland, as part of the strengthening of diplomatic relations between the two nations. Led by Canadian Foreign Minister Anita Anand, the ceremony served as a show of support for the region's autonomy in the face of growing international tensions. In line with this, her Greenlandic counterpart Vivian Motzfeldt highlighted the cultural and political affinity that unites the two peoples. This diplomatic deployment coincided with the arrival of the French Consul General Jean-Noël Poirier, who also took up his duties in Nuuk. Both diplomatic moves appear to be as a response to the regional control ambitions expressed by U.S. President Donald Trump. Moving now to Russia, the government emphasized that it is prepared for any scenario that may arise regarding the expiration of the New START strategic arms treaty with the United States. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov stated that they are willing to discuss the strategic arms treaty with the United States as long as their general position on key issues of bilateral interest is clarified. At the same time, Moscow emphasized that it intends to act responsibly and prudently after analyzing U.S. military policy and the overall strategic situation. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump proposed working on a new agreement on the use of strategic weapons and not extending the New START treaty with Russia. On Friday, the European Commission proposed the 20th package of sanctions against Russia, targeting strategic sectors such as energy, finance, and trade. The sanctions are expected to take effect on February 24, which marks the 4th anniversary of Russia's special military operation in Ukraine. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen announced this new offensive, which seeks to impose a total ban on maritime services for Russian oil in coordination with G7. This measure aims to hinder the export of hydrocarbons and exert political pressure to force negotiations on Western terms. And in China on Friday, as part of the diplomatic agenda, Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez Parrilla, acting as a special envoy for the Cuban party and government, held a meeting with members of his state mission in this country. The foreign minister reported on the meeting with Cuban diplomatic members to review the various issues of current international affairs, focusing on the new pressures facing the largest of the Antilles. In this context, Rodriguez is currently on a tour of China to review bilateral relations and support in the face of the energy crisis affecting the island. Also, as part of political consolidation, Cuba reaffirmed its support for the One China principle and its willingness to continue developing bilateral friendship and cooperation ties. And now we go for our second short break, but before, we invite you to join us for another episode of Overlap, Conversations from Across the World, our special program together with China Academy, this time on our 7th episode, addressing the U.S. 21st century imperialism. Tune it on Sunday, February 8th at 9 p.m. Caracas time, 8 p.m. Havana time, and Monday 9th, 9 a.m. Beijing time, only on teleSUR. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back. Colombia's meteorological authorities warn of a new cold front advancing from the Caribbean. The National Disaster Management Unit indicated that the intensity of the front cold could increase in the coming hours, bringing rain and winds. The Institute of Hydrology, Meteorology and Environmental Studies indicates that the phenomenon will cause flooding and landslides. The coast of Cartagena have begun to receive waves of up to 4 meters height and winds of up to 55 kilometers per hour. Now in Spain, Storm Marta arrives as the country continues to deal with the damage caused by the Leonardo weather phenomenon, which affected much of Andalusia. The state meteorological agency has issued a warning of heavy rain, wind and cold for this Saturday due to the imminent arrival of the storm, while the authorities are still assessing the damage left by Storm Leonardo, which has already the region, one of the most affected by the heavy rains. The meteorological agency points out that this is the 13th storm to bring rain to the south of the country since October 2025. And Storm Marta set off alarms in Portugal due to the risk of new flooding, while the country is already facing the overflowing of the Duero and Tajo rivers due to the passage of Storm Leonardo. Portugal's Civil Protection Agency reports that nearly 900 people have been evacuated from their homes and at least 6 localities remain isolated by the rising waters. The authorities are also maintaining a warning throughout the country in anticipation of the arrival of the weather event. At least 31 people were killed and dozens more were wounded in a suicide bombing attack at a Shia Mosque in Islamabad, one of the most worst incidents to hit Pakistan capital. A powerful explosion occurred at the Khadija Tul Kubra Mosque in the southeastern Tarlai Kalan area of Islamabad during Friday prayers. According to Pakistan's Defense Minister Khawaja Asif, the mosque security guards tried to intercept the suspect, who opened fire on them before detonating explosives among the worshippers. The Islamabad administration stated that 169 people were taken to the hospital after rescue teams reached the explosion site. On Friday evening, the ISIS group claimed responsibility for the attack. And Hezbollah condemned the terrorist bombing of the Khadija al-Kubra Mosque in Islamabad during Friday prayers, which killed and injured many. The group emphasized that this extremist ideology does not target a specific group but strike anyone who stands for truth against falsehood, regardless of religion, gender or ethnicity. Hezbollah called for Arab and Islamic cooperation to eradicate this criminal ideology and remove it perpetrators from societies. In its statement, Hezbollah offered condolences to the families of the deceased and wished the wounded a speedy recovery and called for security and stability for the Pakistani people. The new year transforms Vietnamese nurseries into galleries showcasing the Can techniques, centuries-old art that shapes mandarins into impressive sculptures. Let's see.
Artesanos del Can
artisans transform fruit trees into sculptures in gardens in Van Giang, Vietnam. These living decorations are part of the Tet rituals, the Vietnamese New Year, symbolizing prosperity and good fortune to welcome the arrival of spring. Some nurseries stood out with representations of horses up to 3 meters tall. Van Giang is a town known as one of the largest ornamental plant centers in Vietnam. For its residents, fruit trees like mandarins are not mere objects, they are part of a ritual, where living matter is shaped to attract good wishes.
To create these sculptures, we began planting the old mandarin trees in pots at the end of last year. We took care of them, and by the 8th lunar month, we started bending them and shaping them into horses. Once the desired shape was achieved, we placed them on a long base and sculpted the pot according to our vision, with the help of artisans skilled in design.
The technique used by the artisans is Can, which is guided by 4 fundamental values: antiquity, valuing the exposed roots; uniqueness, creating original and creative shapes; beauty, giving the pieces visual harmony; and cultural expression, integrating the nation's spiritual and philosophical values. More than simple gardening, it is a multi-year effort of patience, where the artisan carefully guides each branch to ensure the tree produces ripe fruit, fresh shoots, and vibrant flowers, exactly in time for the Lunar New Year, a true expression of the world view and identity of the local people.
This year is the year of the horse, so the gardeners have created beautiful bonsais shaped as the horse of success, and horses pulling gold ingots. I think these artisans are exceptional, as they have brought to life splendid works of art that reflect the rich traditional culture of our nation.
The majestic horse figures mark the way to Tet, a time when the trees symbolize abundance, their fruit foretells prosperity, and their growth represents the continuity of the nation's culture.
The 2026 Rotterdam International Film Festival establishes itself as an essential platform for Asian genre film, using action and martial arts to explore political and resistance subtext. The festival highlights productions that combine popular genres such as horror and action with local realities. It distances itself from Western stereotypes about Eastern cinema. Special emphasis is placed on Southeast Asia, with notable presence of countries such as Indonesia and India. Highlights included Blazing First, which represents the evolution of extreme action, and the City of Warriors, which uses the action in the walled city of Kowloon as a metaphor for cultural resistance. And the 5th edition of the Electro Tango Festival began in Buenos Aires, Argentina. This event, which blends the tradition of tango with contemporary electronic sounds, offers a varied program that includes concerts, milongas, and workshops. The festival, which ends on Sunday, February 8, features prominent artists such as Tangueto, Otros Aires, and El Cachivache Quinteto, as well as DJs such as Fran Borra and Camilo Marzano. Among the highlights, there will be a workshop entitled Hack Your Tango, and seminars on unconventional styles such as contact tango and neo tango. And with that information, we have come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesuringles.net. And you can also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, my name is Pablo Michelice. Thank you for watching.